Imagine the silence of a South Carolina night broken only by shovels striking earth. 14 graves, dug and filled before dawn. All in chains. No names. No mercy. What desperate choice led 14 souls to vanish beneath the magnolias? The land remembers. And tonight, so will you. The magnolias stand like silent sentinels along the Cooper River, their heavy blossoms drooping under the weight of their own perfume. In 1891, surveyor Thomas Hartwell stepped into their shadow carrying nothing but a chain, a compass, and the cold certainty of his trade. The soil here refused to lie flat. 14 shallow depressions formed perfect rows beneath the lowest branches, 2 rows of 7, each one the same depth, the same orientation toward the rising sun. Hartwell's metal detector whined like a trapped animal. Iron. Not tools. Chains. Fragments of rusted links scattered through the dirt like broken promises. He knelt, brushed away leaves, and felt the chill rise from the ground, not from temperature, but from something older. Something that had happened in darkness and been covered in haste. All 14 filled the same night. The same hour, perhaps. The question burned in his mind like fever: what terror demands 14 bodies be hidden before the first rooster crows? What Hartwell could not know was that the answer lay not in accident or plague, but in a single, terrible act of will. A choice made under the lash of sin, where survival bowed before dignity. A choice that carried the weight of Scripture when the enslaved looked upon their bondage and said, like the Israelites staring at Pharaoh's chariots, "Enough." The land itself bore witness. The earth had swallowed their bodies, but it could not digest their defiance. And now, in the quiet grove, it whispered their story to anyone willing to listen. Rewind 7 years. March 1854. The dogwoods along the river are bleeding white, petals drifting like snow in the humid air. Samuel Brennan arrives at Riverside Plantation under a sky the color of bruised fruit. 32 years old, a merchant's son from Charleston, he has never touched a plow. His fortune came from cotton ledgers, not cotton fields. The inheritance bought him 800 acres of rich alluvial soil along the Cooper, a 2-story house with columns that lean like tired soldiers, and 32 human beings listed in the deed's appendix as property. The carriage rattles to a stop. Dust swirls around the wheels. Samuel steps down first, boots sinking into the soft earth. Margaret follows, clutching little Eleanor's hand so tightly the child's knuckles whiten. The air smells of river mud, blooming jasmine, and something sharper, decay beneath the beauty. The house looms, paint peeling in long gray strips, shutters hanging crooked, vines strangling the eastern brick like fingers. Inside, sheets shroud furniture like ghosts. Dust thickens the sunlight into shafts of dull gold. Rodents scurry in the walls. Margaret walks the rooms with the slow horror of someone entering a tomb. Water stains bloom across the dining room ceiling like dark flowers. A broken pane in the parlor lets in flies. Eleanor, 5 and fearless, runs ahead, footsteps echoing on bare boards. "It's like a castle," she says. Margaret does not answer. Samuel stands on the porch as the sun sinks, painting the river in fire. 800 acres. 32 souls. Fields lying fallow for 3 years under the late owner, Charles Dunor, a man whose ledgers showed profit until they did not. Samuel feels the exhilaration of possession, but beneath it, a thread of unease. He has promised Margaret fairness. Better treatment. Yet fairness inside a system built on theft feels like polishing chains. From the quarters, 2 rows of weathered cabins, clay-chinked, dirt-floored, eyes watch him. Shadows in doorways. 3 older men, 2 women. Their faces are unreadable in the failing light. Among them stands Henry, the overseer born on riverside soil. 50 years old, skin like worn leather. Eyes that miss nothing. He has survived Dunor by learning the art of measured speech, anticipating wants before they are spoken. Now he measures Samuel. Young. Ambitious. Perhaps idealistic. Dangerous in their own way. Judith, kitchen mistress, stands beside him. "What do you see?" she asks softly. "Too soon to say," Henry murmurs. But the last one set a low bar. Anyone clears it by breathing. They watch the lights flare in the big house. Candles behind wavy glass. Their new masters settling in. No one speaks the name of the grove yet. No one mentions the summer of 1850. Dawn the next morning. Samuel wakes before light. The unfamiliar sounds kept him restless, frogs chanting along the river, an owl's low question, a distant cough from the quarters like someone stifling grief. He dresses and finds Henry already in the yard, distributing hoes and sacks. Mr. Brennan, Henry nods. No surprise. He had anticipated this. Show me everything. They walk as the sun rises, a red wound over the trees. Henry speaks in careful phrases. East fields, depleted but recoverable with rotation. West fields, clay-heavy, flood-prone. Done or pushed them anyway. Lost 3 to fever, Henry says. Standing water. Bad air. Samuel notes the phrasing. Lost. Not died. Not killed by negligence. A lesson in survival language. We won't work flooded ground, Samuel says. Henry's shoulders ease a fraction. A small victory. They tour the gin-rusted, silent, the leaking barns, the cold forge, the empty hospital with its cobwebs and broken bottles. Dunor believed medicine wasted money that could buy more seed. Then the quarters. Cabins in uneven rows. Some swept clean, small gardens thriving in front. Others sagging, roofs patched with whatever could be found. Children peek from doorways. Women pause in their tasks. Men straighten. Henry introduces them one by one. Joseph, broad-shouldered field hand, 2 boys clinging to his legs. Diana, cloth weaver, fingers nimble as spider legs. Marcus, back bent from old injury, still moving with dignity. Thomas, carpenter, eyes hungry for tools. Anna, herbalist, hands stained green. And Grace. Young, perhaps 25. A child on her hip. When Henry says her name, she meets Samuel's gaze directly. Not defiance. Evaluation. Morning, Mr. Brennan. Good morning. Her voice is even. No, sir. No averted eyes. Henry later calls her independent-minded. Samuel feels the weight of that word. The tour ends at the grove. Magnolias ancient, trunks thick as barrels. Air cooler here, scented with flowers and damp earth. The ground uneven. Samuel notices the thin grass, the bare patches. Not planting here? Ground's not suitable, Henry says. Samuel accepts it. He does not yet know he stands on sacred ground. Back at the house, Margaret serves eggs and bread. How was the tour? Educational. She watches him. She sees the unease he tries to hide. While Samuel pores over ledgers, Eleanor explores. At 5, rules or suggestions. The grove is visible from the house. Close enough. She enters the cathedral of trees. Light filters green gold through leaves. Air thick, earthy. She touches bark, crunches fallen petals. Then she sees the patches. 14 bare spots in neat rows. Grass grows around them but not on them. The earth remembers disturbance. She kneels, fingers in the soil. A voice behind her. Child, you shouldn't be alone here. Eleanor turns. An elderly woman leans on a stick. Face lined like old leather. Eyes bright as river stones. I'm not alone now, Eleanor says. You're here. A near smile. Name? Eleanor Brennan. My papa owns this place now. Yours? Ruth Campbell. Kitchen. Eleanor brushes dirt from her dress. Why won't grass grow here? Ruth is silent. The question hangs. Earth's been disturbed, she says finally. Sometimes it don't heal right. Disturbed how? Ruth lowers herself to a fallen log. Bones creak. Eleanor sits beside her without hesitation. Grief, Ruth says. Or memory lying heavy? Eleanor's eyes widen. People are buried here? Something like that. No stones? No stones. Why? Ruth looks at the child, innocent, privileged, yet asking the right questions. They weren't seen as important enough. That's sad. Eleanor's voice is matter of fact. Everyone's important. Ruth feels a crack in the wall she has built over years. I agree. Not everyone else does. Did you know them? I did. Friends. Families. They sang. They laughed. They dreamed. How did they die? Ruth hesitates. They made a choice. What choice? A hard one. About what they would accept. And what they would not. Eleanor waits. Patient. Ruth continues softly. The Bible speaks of people who chose death over chains. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego in the fire. Daniel in the den. Sometimes the body dies so the soul lives free. Eleanor's brow furrows. Did God save them? Not that way. Not this time. But God remembers. The earth remembers. Can I remember them? Ruth studies her. How? I could bring flowers. Make sure no one forgets. Ruth's throat tightens. You'd do that? Yes. Because everyone's important. From that day, Eleanor visits the grove. She gathers wildflowers, black-eyed Susans, honeysuckle, and lays one on each patch. She does not know the full story. She will not for years. But she knows reverence. Ruth sometimes joins her. Tells fragments. Joseph sang bass like thunder. Diana braided hair into crowns. Marcus carved birds that looked ready to fly. Human details. Proof of life. The others notice. Whispers spread through the quarters. The master's daughter honors the dead. The dead who had no names on stone but names in hearts. Margaret notices too. She can't keep going there, she tells Samuel one night. Why not? It's not a proper cemetery. No markers. No Christian burial. It's a cemetery. She shows respect. Margaret's voice rises. Respect for what? For people treated as less than human? The argument circles. Propriety versus humanity. Protection versus truth. Samuel allows the visits with an adult. Neither is satisfied. But the seed is planted. The truth is stirring. Samuel works the ledgers. Dunor's books are precise until July 1850. 10 days blank. Then entries: Dr. Silas Crawford, $45. Reverend John Walsh, $20. Materials and services, $75. 14 deceased. Samuel's finger traces the numbers. What event requires doctor, minister, and sudden expense? Why the silence in the records? He asks Henry. Henry looks away. I don't recall details, sir. Judith, in the kitchen, cuts off mid-sentence when 1850 is mentioned. There was sickness. Then silence. The plantation breathes quietly. No songs in the fields. No laughter. Only the rhythm of labor and the weight of memory. Samuel senses it. The air feels thick with unspoken things. The grove waits. The chains lie beneath the soil. And somewhere, in the silence, the story of that night begins to rise. Like a tide. Like judgment. Like grace that will not be denied. The equipment shed smelled of old iron and oiled wood, the air close and heavy with the day's heat still clinging to the rafters. Mid-June 1854. Samuel Brennan stood over a ledger, the numbers from July 1850 staring back at him like accusations, the blank days, the sudden payments to a doctor and a minister, the blunt finality of 14 deceased. His finger traced the line again, as if the ink might rearrange itself into something less ominous. Henry paused mid-motion, the plow blade in his hand forgotten. The overseer's face, usually a mask of careful neutrality, cracked just a hair, revealing something raw beneath. "Henry," Samuel said, voice low but unyielding, "no more deflections. I need to know what happened that summer." Henry set the blade down with deliberate slowness. The clink of metal on wood echoed like a gavel. "Some truths don't sit easy once spoken, Mr. Brennan. They change the air you breathe. I can't manage this place if I'm blind to its past." Henry met his eyes then. Not defiance. Resignation. The look of a man who had carried shame for 4 long years and knew the weight was about to be shared. "You really want it?" "Yes. Even if it changes how you see every face here? Even if it changes how you see yourself?" Samuel did not hesitate. "Yes." Henry exhaled, long and slow. "Then you need Ruth." She saw it from the first breath to the last. She can speak it without the guilt choking the words. I was part of it. I chose wrong. I failed people. The guilt would color everything I say." Samuel studied the overseer's face. Shame lived there deep, old, unhealed. Like a wound that had scarred over but still throbbed when pressed. "Talk to Ruth," Henry said quietly. "But remember this, they didn't have good choices. They had terrible ones and impossible ones. They chose the least evil they could see. Don't judge too quickly. Sometimes understanding and judgment are the same blade." That evening the plantation settled into twilight. The Cooper River ran copper and gold beneath the setting sun. Cicadas screamed in the trees. Samuel found Ruth outside her cabin, perched on a 3-legged stool, snapping green beans into a tin bowl with rhythmic precision. The light caught the lines on her face, each one a story etched by time and sorrow. "Ruth," he said softly. "We need to talk." She did not startle. "I figured you'd come. Henry warned me." "Sit." She gestured to a split log bench nearby. Samuel sat. Ruth remained on her stool, hands folded now, beans forgotten. The sky behind her burned crimson, as if the heavens themselves were bleeding. "Before I speak," she said, "know this, once I tell you, you carry it. It will alter the ground under your feet, the faces you see every day, maybe the mirror you look into." "You sure?" "I'm sure." She nodded once, slow, final. "Then listen. The summer of 1850 wasn't fate. It was choices, mostly du Nord's. But others too. And when ordinary people are stripped of everything ordinary, they make extraordinary decisions. Sometimes those decisions look like madness. Sometimes they look like scripture." She began. June 1850. The air already thick, like breathing through wet wool. Done or received letters from Charleston. Creditors circling. Debts mounting. The plantation's yield had fallen, the soil was tired, the people tireder. He responded the only way he knew, more. Longer days. No Sunday rest. Water breaks cut short. Food rations shaved. "Work until we're profitable again," he declared. "Or I sell south. Rice fields. You know what that means." Samuel knew. The rice plantations of Georgia and Louisiana were death sentences, swamps, snakes, malaria, overseers who whipped for sport. Sold south meant disappear forever. People tried to endure, Ruth said. What else could they do? You work or you suffer worse. But the pace, it wasn't human. Joseph, strongest man on the place, approached done or respectfully. Asked for brief shade in the worst heat. Dunor's answer, 10 lashes in the yard, everyone watching. A lesson in silence. After that, no more questions. Just heads down. Bodies pushed. July arrived like a furnace. Heat that made the horizon shimmer, made your vision swim. Done or pushed harder. Less water. Less food. Profit margins, he said. Then Sarah collapsed. 14 years old. Always singing. Voice like a bell in the fields. She fell face first into the rows. Silent. Gone. Henry carried her back. They tried everything: cool cloths, shade, prayers. Nothing. She slipped away at sunset. Dunor's response: extra hour next day. To make up lost time. Called it weakness in her constitution. Said he'd buy sturdier stock. Ruth's voice never wavered, but Samuel felt the fury banked beneath it like coals under ash, ready to flare. That was the breaking, she said. Not fear anymore. Anger. The kind that burns fear away. That night, behind the quarters, they met in secret. Small children left sleeping. Old women watching them. Everyone else gathered in the dark space where the main house could not hear. Joseph spoke first. Quiet. This can't go on. He'll kill us one by one. Call it nature. Diana showed her hands raw, bleeding through wraps. I can't feel them anymore. Another week, I won't hold anything. Marcus, back ruined, couldn't stand straight. Pain every night. One by one they spoke. Not complaints. Facts. Bodies failing. Lives eroding. Then Thomas asked the question, what do we do? Ideas came. Run north. Sabotage slow. All discarded. Dogs. Catchers. Retribution on those left behind. Nothing worked. Then Grace spoke. 19 then. No children yet. Quiet through the meeting. Listening. Then. What if we stopped trying to win, she said. What if we ended on our terms? Silence. Thick. Understanding dawning. We can't beat him, she continued. Can't escape. Can't talk. But we can choose how it ends. We can die standing. Not on our knees. The words landed like stones in still water. Ripples of horror. Recognition. Truth. Henry spoke, anyone who chooses this, I stand with you. But it must be choice. No pressure. No guilt. You decide if dignity is worth more than breath. 14 said yes. Samuel felt the ground shift beneath him. They chose death? Ruth's eyes met his. They chose dignity. When the only choices are slow death under the lash or quick death with head high, which is suicide? At least they said no first. Samuel had no answer. Ruth continued. They were not numbers. They were people. Joseph Fricks, 32. 2 sons. Voice like deep river. Sang across fields. Taught his boys to track, to fire, to forage, without telling them why. Diana Wells, 29. Braided hair into art. Taught her 8-year-old daughter to read from a stolen Bible. Passed the knowledge mouth to ear, because paper could be found. Marcus Reed, 41. Carpenter. Carved animals for children: horses, birds, rabbits. Every child had one. Gave them away the night before. Thomas Carter, 23. Courted Grace. Asked her to marry him, knowing it was impossible. She said yes anyway. Anna Price, 35. Healer. Delivered babies. Passed her herb knowledge to Beth. James Foster, 27. Storyteller. Mimicked voices. Made them laugh when nothing was funny. Eliza Hayes, 31. Quilt maker. Patterns told stories. Some were maps north. William Grant, 19. Fastest runner. Planned to flee. Stayed instead. Rebecca Shaw, 42. Sang spirituals. Voice like clear water over stone. Daniel Brooks, 38. Gentle with animals, children. Patience without end. Sarah Monroe, 22. Friend to the first Sarah. Could not work for the man who killed her friend. John Ellis, 53. Oldest. Born here. Wife dead. Children sold. Nothing left but dignity. Catherine Wright, 26. Seamstress. Stitches perfect. Robert Stone, 34. Taught himself fiddle from a broken one. Could play 3 songs. 14 complete lives. Each loved. Each choosing. They prepared 2 days. Not for battle. For farewell. Joseph with his boys. Diana with her daughter. Marcus with carvings. Thomas with grace. Anna with herbs. James with stories. Eliza with quilts. Rebecca with songs. Henry begged them to reconsider. There might be another way. Joseph, we've given everything. Tomorrow we take something back. The right to say no. Henry, you have children. Diana, they'll grow up watching us die slow. Is that better? Henry had no answer. He turned to Ruth. Tell them it's madness. Ruth, it's their choice. Henry stopped arguing. I'll be there. You won't face it alone. July 15th, hottest day. They chose it deliberately. Wanted Dunor to see what his heat had wrought. Dawn. They dressed in their best, least ragged clothes. Walked to the main house. No march. No shout. Just quiet steps. Dignity in motion. The rest watched from doorways. Hearts breaking. Pride rising. Dunor on the porch. Coffee in hand. Saw them. Face flushed. What do you think you're doing? He barked. Fields. Now. They stopped 20 feet away. Joseph stepped forward. Come. Steady. Mr. Dunor, he said, we're not working today. Not tomorrow. We're done. Silence. Absolute. You're what? Done, Joseph repeated. We're not your slaves anymore. Dunor's face twisted rage, disbelief, fear. The air thickened. Birds fell silent. The river seemed to pause. Samuel felt his pulse in his ears. Ruth watched him, waiting. That was the moment, she said. The moment they took back what had been stolen. Their humanity. Their will. Even if it cost everything. The grove waited in the distance. Magnolias heavy with bloom. The earth beneath them ready to receive what was coming. And somewhere, in the silence between defiance and consequence, divine justice leaned close, listening. The morning sun had barely cleared the river when the 14 halted 20 feet from the porch. Dust still swirled from their footsteps. Dunor's coffee cup met the rail with a soft clink, careful, almost delicate. His face flushed the color of raw clay. Not in our hearts, Joseph said, voice steady as river stone. You can chain our bodies under the law. But you don't own us. Not anymore. Dunor set the cup down slowly. I'm giving you one chance. One. Get back to the fields. After that, he let the threat hang, heavy as humid air. Consequences you can't imagine. Diana stepped forward half a pace. We've imagined them. Every lash, every sail south, every shallow grave. We weighed them against another sunrise under your whip. And we chose. Dunor disappeared inside. Everyone knew why. Rifles waited just beyond the door, always loaded, always ready for moments exactly like this. He returned with the weapon leveled. Last chance. No one moved. I'll shoot, he said. Every last one. Joseph met his eyes. We know. And in that instant, Dunor understood. The calculation shifted behind his gaze. He had always ruled by fear, fear of pain, fear of separation, fear of death. But these 14 had passed through fear's gate and closed it behind them. Death was no longer the worst outcome, submission was. "You're forcing me," he said, almost pleading. In his mind, perhaps, he truly believed it. The victim of unruly property. The reluctant executioner. Thomas spoke quietly. "We're not forcing anything. We're choosing. You're choosing too. You could let us walk. You could listen. But you won't. Because a world where we have choices terrifies you more than blood on your porch." Dunor raised the rifle. The first shot shattered the morning. Joseph folded at the knees, then crumpled forward into the dirt. A dark bloom spread across his chest. He made no sound. The others did not scatter. They stood closer together, shoulders brushing, eyes forward. Waiting. Dunor reloaded. Hands shaking now. Fired again. Diana fell next, graceful even in death, knees buckling slowly, body settling like a dropped shawl. Marcus. Thomas. One after another. The rifle spoke. Reload. Speak again. It took nearly an hour. He had to pause between shots, ramrod, powder, ball, each interval stretching longer as hope drained from his face. He kept waiting for them to break. To beg. To run. They never did. Anna began to sing. A spiritual Rebecca had taught her, low, clear, carrying the promise of Jordan's other side. Rebecca joined. Then others. Voices weaving together, growing thinner as singers fell silent one by one, but never stopping. The song held them upright when legs wanted to give. Robert was last. He looked straight at Dunor. "My name is Robert Stone. Remember it." The final shot. Silence rushed back in. Birds that had fled returned cautiously. The river kept moving. Dunor stood motionless, rifle hanging loose. Staring at the 14 bodies arranged in rough order on the ground before his porch. Shock etched his features. He had expected resistance to shatter. Instead, it had stood firm until the end. He did not know what to do with such defiance. After a long minute, he turned and walked inside. The door closed softly. Henry emerged from the shadow of the smokehouse. He had positioned himself to see everything without being seen. Now he walked among the fallen. Checked each one. Some were gone instantly. Others lingered, gasping, bleeding, eyes still open. Henry knelt beside them. Held their hands. Whispered scripture, names, memories. Made sure no one crossed alone. Ruth's voice broke as she told Samuel this part. Tears carved clean tracks down her weathered cheeks. She wiped them with her apron sleeve and kept going. When the last breath faded, Henry began to dig. He chose the Magnolia Grove. Shade. Distance from the house. A place Dunor could pretend did not exist. The rest came to help. Shovels in calloused hands. Hard summer earth fought them. Sweat stung eyes. Muscles trembled from hunger and exhaustion. But they dug 14 graves, 2 rows of 7, all oriented east toward the rising sun, the direction their grandparents had taught meant homecoming. They wrapped each body in whatever they had, patched sheets, spare shirts, scraps of quilt. Not proper shrouds. Not what was deserved. But the best love could offer. Some wanted markers, crosses, stones, anything. Henry refused. If anyone sees marked graves, questions start. Questions bring trouble. Trouble brings more death. For the living, we keep this secret. So they filled the graves unmarked. Packed the earth. Swept leaves over the fresh soil to hide disturbance. When the last grave was level, Henry spoke the names aloud, slow and deliberate. Joseph Ricks. Diana Wells. Marcus Reed. Thomas Carter. Anna Price. James Foster. Eliza Hayes. William Grant. Rebecca Shaw, Daniel Brooks, Sarah Monroe, John Ellis, Catherine Wright, Robert Stone. He paused after each. The group repeated them in unison, dozens of voices braiding the names into memory. They stood saying the names over and over until throats were raw. Until the names felt carved into bone. Then they walked back to the quarters in silence. Next morning Dunor rang the work bell as if nothing had changed. Samuel sat frozen long after Ruth finished. Horror pressed against his ribs. The authorities, he managed. No one reported it? Ruth's laugh was dry, bitter. Report to whom? The sheriff who drank with Dunor? Courts that saw us as property? The law said a master could correct his slaves even to death if necessary. Dunor made it clean on paper. Paid Dr. Crawford to write fever outbreak. Paid Reverend Walsh to enter natural causes in the church book. Paid a lawyer to adjust the property ledger, 14 assets removed at market value. All legal. All tidy. Disease took them. No one cared enough to look closer. Samuel felt the ground tilt beneath him. Murder made invisible by ink and indifference. And the children, he asked. Joseph's boys raised by their aunt. Diana's daughter, sold later. Dunor needed cash. Grace never recovered from Thomas. The rest of us carried on. 3 more years under Dunor. Working fields soaked with their blood. Sleeping where we could see the grove. Every day the wait. Every night the grief. We kept silent because truth wouldn't bring justice. It would bring retaliation. Better the lie stood. Better their memory stayed pure. But it ate at you, Samuel said. Every day for 4 years, Ruth answered. Wondering if we should have spoken. If silence made us complicit. But who would listen? Who would act? Speaking would only punish the living. Samuel stared into the darkness. And now that I know, what happens? Ruth looked at him levelly. That depends on you, Mr. Brennan. You're master now. The law hasn't changed. You still hold the power to sell us, punish us, work us to nothing. Knowing changes nothing unless you let it change you. I'm not Dunor. Maybe not. But you still profit from chains. Good intentions don't erase that. Samuel walked back to the house under stars. Margaret waited, worry etched deep. You were gone hours. What did she say? He told her everything. The defiance. The song. The shots. The graves. The lie. Margaret listened until tears spilled. We can't stay here, she whispered. We can't build on that much blood. We invested everything. We have nowhere else. Then what? Pretend? Work them while their friends lie 50 yards away? I don't know, Samuel admitted. But we can't unknow it. We can't do nothing. They sat in darkness, 2 people suddenly carrying a burden heavier than debt or crop failure. Samuel did not sleep. He paced the upper hall, seeing faces he had never met, Joseph's steady gaze, Diana's bleeding hands, Robert's final words. By dawn a decision hardened. He found Henry before first bell. I want to mark the graves, Samuel said. Proper stones. Names carved. Ruth knows them. Henry stared. You understand what that means? You make it public. The region will know. Other planters will see Defiance celebrated. They'll pressure you. They'll make examples of us. Samuel hadn't weighed that fully. The planter class guarded its order fiercely. Public honor for rebels could be read as invitation. What then? Samuel asked. Henry spoke carefully. Honor them in ways the living can bear. Something outsiders see as pretty, but we know the meaning. They talked for hours. Consulted Ruth, Judith, others who remembered. A compromise emerged. No headstones. Living memorials, 14 dogwood saplings. White blooms like crosses. Legend said the dogwood once grew straight and tall until it was used for Christ's cross, then cursed to twist small, but blessed to bloom each spring in reminder of sacrifice and resurrection. Fitting for those who chose death over degradation. One bronze plaque on a rough stone at the grove's edge. Here rest 14 souls who chose dignity over survival. Their names are known to those who love them. July 15, 1850. Truth spoken softly. Enough to honor. Not enough to provoke. Samuel bought the saplings from Charleston, claiming a family memorial. The lie tasted sour, but necessary. Ruth wrote the names and stories in careful hand, ages, gifts, families sealed in the plantation ledger. A private testament. Late September. Heat broken. Samuel declared a day without labor. Neighbors whispered. He ignored them. The community gathered in the grove, more than 30, children included. Rough log benches formed a circle. Eleanor, 8 now, clung to Margaret's hand, sensing the gravity. Henry spoke first. We gather to remember 14 who walked this land. Who were this land? Joseph Cricks. Diana Wells. Marcus Reed. After each name, someone offered a memory. Joseph sang the fields awake. Diana taught my girl to read. Risked everything. Marcus carved me a rabbit. I still keep it. Testimonies wove a tapestry of lives, rich, human, stolen. When the last name echoed, tears fell freely. Grief. Pride. Relief that after 4 years the truth breathed daylight. Samuel stepped forward. I never knew them. But I know their choice. They faced a world that offered only chains or death, and chose dignity. I cannot undo their suffering. I cannot bring justice. But I can promise this, as long as I hold this land, their story will not vanish. These trees will bloom each spring. A reminder of courage. Of humanity. He planted the first over Joseph's grave. Hands in earth. Roots settled. Soil pressed firm. Margaret and Eleanor planted Diana's. Then others, Joseph's sons together, Grace over Thomas, Anna's apprentice touching the bark like a blessing. When all 14 stood, Ruth spoke. They chose together. Faced it together. Rest together. We remember not only how they died, but who they lived as. Singers. Healers. Teachers. Lovers. Loved. As long as we remember, they remain. Silence. Then a single voice lifted Rebecca's spiritual. Others joined. Harmony rose through magnolia leaves, spilled into fields. Samuel listened. Felt something crack open inside, small, inadequate, but real. He could not dismantle slavery. But he could witness. Could choose differently. Word spread. Visitors came. Some curious. Some hostile. James Whitfield arrived first. Found Samuel in the office. Honoring Defiance? Planting trees? You're making martyrs. They were people. They deserve memory. You're encouraging rebellion. Banks will close. Buyers will vanish. You're isolating yourself. He was right. Contracts thinned. Credit tightened. Charleston friends withdrew. Church greetings grew polite and distant. Children avoided Eleanor. Why? She asked Margaret. Because your father did right, Margaret said gently. And sometimes right looks wrong to the world. Samuel persisted. Shorter hours in heat. Water. Medicine. Gardens. Profits shrank. Loans mounted. Renovations stopped. Margaret's resentment grew. Was it worth it? She asked one night. The trees. The changes. Becoming outcasts? Samuel met her eyes. Would silence have been better? Dunor's legacy continued? I wish we'd never come here. But they had. And choices, purchase, knowledge, memory carried consequences. Eleanor, now 10, asked directly one Sunday on the porch. Storm clouds gathered west. Papa, what really happened in the grove? Samuel had rehearsed this moment for years. He took her hand. They were people who lived here. Worked here. Loved here. One summer they reached a point where they could no longer accept being treated as less than human. They stood together and said no. And they paid the highest price for it. But they did it with courage. With song. With dignity. We plant those trees so we never forget what real strength looks like. Eleanor looked toward the grove. Dogwoods young but sturdy. White blooms promised for next spring. Will people always remember them? If we keep telling their story, Samuel said, yes. Thunder rumbled distant. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady. The land drank it in. The graves beneath listened. And somewhere in the silence between drops, 14 names waited, still spoken, still known, still alive in memory. Sunday afternoon, 1864. Thunderheads gathered over the Cooper like bruised fists. Eleanor, now 10, sat beside her father on the porch swing. The chain creaked softly. Dogwoods in the grove stood young but sturdy, their white crosses of bloom already fading into summer green. She had asked the question that had simmered since childhood. Papa, what really happened in the grove? Samuel drew a slow breath. The air tasted of coming rain and river mud. He had rehearsed this moment in sleepless nights, searching for words that would speak truth without crushing innocence. They made a choice, he began. A terrible one. About what they would endure. And what they would refuse. Eleanor's eyes, clear, unblinking, held his. What kind? Mr. Dunor, the man before us, pushed too far. A girl died in the fields from heat and exhaustion. 14 others decided they could no longer live that way. They stood before him. Told him they were done. He could not accept it. He killed them. The words landed plain. Eleanor did not flinch. She had visited the graves weekly since she was 5, laying flowers, whispering names Ruth had taught her. She had sensed the weight long before she understood the shape. Why, she asked. Because the law said he could. Because he saw them as property, not people. Because their defiance threatened everything he believed about power. And because, in that moment, he chose cruelty over mercy. Eleanor looked toward the grove. The law was wrong. Yes. Is it still wrong? Samuel felt the question like a blade against bone. How to explain to a child that the wealth sustaining their home, their clothes, their very lives rested on an institution Scripture itself condemned, man holding man in bondage, echoing Pharaoh's chains on Israel? How to confess that he, her father, still participated in it? Yes, he said finally. The laws are still wrong. And good people must decide what to do when they see wrong wearing the cloak of right. We could free them, Eleanor said, logic simple as sunlight. Then everyone chooses for themselves. Samuel's throat tightened. He wanted to agree. Wanted to say yes, to unshackle the 30 remaining souls on Riverside and walk away clean. But reality pressed in, financial ruin, social exile, legal reprisal from a state that guarded its peculiar institution with ferocity. Freedom would cost everything he had built. And yet, was that cost heavier than the sin of continued ownership? I don't have a good answer, he admitted. I'm trying to be better than Dunor. Trying to treat people with the dignity they deserve. But you're right, it's not enough. Maybe your generation will have the courage mine lacks. Eleanor nodded slowly. I go to the grove every week. I say the names. Ruth taught me all 14. Remembering matters. It does, Samuel said, arm around her shoulders. But remembering without change is just mourning while the evil continues. She looked at him with a wisdom far beyond 10 years. Then we have to change something. Rain began, soft patter on the tin roof, then steady drumming. The grove drank it in. Beneath the soil, 14 waited. Their choice had planted a seed of unrest in Samuel's conscience. Now it grew in his daughter's. Ruth Campbell's body had carried the weight of 78 years of labor, grief, and unyielding memory. By 1857 she moved like dry leaves in wind. Samuel brought doctors from Charleston, expensive, futile. He moved her to a cabin with better floors, warmer hearth, lighter duties. But death approached steadily. One June evening, Ruth asked to be carried to the grove one last time. Henry and Samuel bore her on a litter. Eleanor walked beside, holding the old woman's hand. The dogwoods had grown, branches spreading, leaves thick. A few late blooms clung defiant white against green. The air smelled of damp earth and faint sweetness. "They're beautiful," Ruth whispered. Joseph loved dogwoods. Said they reminded him of hope that bends but doesn't break. "Tell me about them again," Eleanor pleaded. Ruth did. Slowly. Voice thin but clear. She spoke each name, Joseph's deep bass carrying across fields, Diana's secret lessons in reading, Marcus's carved rabbits, Thomas's gentle promise to Grace, Anna's healing hands, James's laughter in darkness, Eliza's quilted maps north, William's swift feet, Rebecca's angelic spirituals, Daniel's patience with children and creatures, Sarah's quiet grief for her friend, John's lifelong endurance, Catherine's perfect stitches, Robert's 3 fiddle tunes. She spoke until breath faltered. Until words drifted. "Ruth," Eleanor asked softly, "are you afraid to die?" A faint headshake. "No, child. I've seen these trees bloom. I've seen their names spoken. That's more than I hoped." "What are you afraid of?" Ruth's eyes, clouded now, found the bronze plaque half hidden by vines. "That when the last witness is gone, people will forget the hard truth. They'll make prettier stories. Easier ones. Stories that don't ask what humans do to each other when power goes unchallenged." "I won't forget," Eleanor said fiercely. "I'll tell my children. The true story. The hard one. Even if it makes people uncomfortable. Even if it costs us." Ruth smiled, faint, weary. "Then I can rest." She turned to Samuel, standing silent nearby. "You're better than Dunor, Mr. Brennan. But you still own slaves. That makes you responsible. Teach your daughter to be better than you. Give her courage to choose what our generation could not." "I'm trying," Samuel said. "Try harder." Ruth died 2 nights later. Peaceful. In sleep. They buried her in the grove. 15th grave. 15th dogwood planted. Samuel wrote in the journal himself, Ruth Campbell, keeper of memory. Age 78. She bore truth when silence was easier. She remembered when forgetting was safer. Bearing witness is sacred work. War came in 1861. Fort Sumter's guns echoed across Charleston. South Carolina seceded first. Samuel, 49, watched with divided heart. He understood states' rights arguments. Understood economic fears. But he knew the root, slavery. The institution that had haunted Riverside since Ruth's story. He did not join the Confederate Army. Too old. Too conflicted. Riverside endured blockades, requisitions, rumors of freedom. Fall 1863. Henry, 68, approached Samuel in the barn. "Some younger ones are talking of leaving. Heading coastward to Union lines. Grace. Her children. Joseph's boys. Others. A dozen, maybe." Samuel had expected this. When? Soon. Before winter. Long silence. Then, "I won't stop them." Henry stared. "You won't?" "No. I won't organize it. Won't help directly, too much risk for those who stay. But no dogs. No reports. No pursuit. Henry exhaled. I thought you'd hold them. Law says they're property. I've wrestled this ground for 10 years. I won't force them to stay when freedom is within reach. If they all go, they go. Not all left. Elders stayed, tied to soil, to kin. But 1864 saw departures. Grace came before leaving. Thank you for the trees, she said. For remembering Thomas. It doesn't erase what happened. But it meant something. Still does. She walked north with her children. Into uncertainty. Into choice. Confederacy collapsed 1865. 13th Amendment abolished slavery. Riverside stood intact, house, fields, grove. But the world had shifted. Late May 1865. Samuel gathered the remaining people in the grove. You're free, he said. Not my gift. The laws. Stay and I'll pay wages. Leave and I won't hinder. The choice is yours. Questions followed: wages, housing, land plots. Messy. Uncertain. New. Henry stayed. I've lived here my whole life. Made hard choices to keep people alive. Might as well finish here, trying to build something better from ruins. Production fell. Free labor refused excess. Samuel welcomed it. Honesty cost less than illusion. Eleanor, 21 by 1870, managed much of Riverside. Never married. Responsibilities, she told curious neighbors. Truth she shared only with Samuel: how do I build a life on blood-soaked ground? How do I plan a future without facing the past? Samuel died 1878. Age 66. Last words to Eleanor: don't let them forget. Whatever else, keep the story alive. Eleanor inherited diminished Riverside, sold acres, debts, fewer workers. Her first act: memorial ceremony in the grove. First since Ruth's burial. 50 came: descendants, neighbors, former workers. Eleanor spoke. 28 years ago, 14 chose dignity over survival. Joseph Fricks. Diana Wells. Marcus Reed. Thomas Carter. Anna Price. James Foster. Eliza Hayes. William Grant. Rebecca Shaw. Daniel Brooks. Sarah Monroe. John Ellis. Catherine Wright. Robert Stone. Names resonated. Then. Memory is not enough. The past demands action. Today I divide 40 acres into plots. Anyone who works here can buy at fair terms. Land means security. Means legacy. I open a school. Open to all children. Education denied under slavery, now freely given. I record the true history. Not sanitized. What happened to the 14 will be preserved accurately. Radical in 1878 South Carolina. Land to freed people. Integrated school. Public truth about slavery's violence. Opposition came: whispers, threats, boycotts. Eleanor persisted. Used remaining wealth. School opened 1879 in a renovated barn. Land sales began slowly, then spread. She maintained the grove. Tended dogwoods. Cleaned the plaque. Commissioned a journal, full account from Ruth, Henry, others. Locked away. To be opened when ready. Eleanor lived to 1899. Died at 55 from pneumonia. Buried in the grove. 16th Dogwood. Inscription: Eleanor Brennan carried remembrance forward. Transformed death into learning. Proved witness is only the beginning. What matters is what you do after truth is known. Thomas Hartwell's 1891 survey found the depressions. Iron fragments. Uniform graves. Curiosity stirred reporters, historians, gossip. But the journal stayed locked. Truth waited for a generation ready to hear without distortion. The grove endured. Dogwoods bloomed persistent white each spring longer than elsewhere, locals said, as if determined to fulfill their purpose. The story layered over time. Some called the 14 martyrs. Others victims. Others symbols of resistance. None of the labels fully captured the raw human choice, dignity over continued degradation. What mattered, they were remembered as people. Joseph. Diana. Marcus. Not anonymous losses. Not property footnotes. By the 20th century, Riverside changed hands. Subdivided. House restored as museum. School evolved. Grove protected, local ordinances, volunteer care. Every July 15th, a ceremony. Names read. Story shared. Silence held. Attendance varied. But the ritual persisted. Beneath magnolias and dogwoods, 16 rested. 14 who chose. 1 who guarded. 1 who acted. The question lingered, carried on spring wind, in blooming petals. What will you do with the freedom they bought in blood? The grove offered no easy answers. Only stubborn memory. And in a world eager to forget, memory itself became resistance. The trees bloomed. The names were spoken. And the land remembered.